Hey everybody, I'm Anthony Conklin, and this is the Anthony Conklin Show, where we help entrepreneurs rediscover energy in their lives by connecting their passion and purpose and finding their why. I spent 25 years in corporate America and 27 coming up on 28 years in the entertainment space, helping people really understand what their purpose is and their passion is and helping them get connected to their why, because your why is who you are, it's where you live, it's what you eventually become in your life. The format of the show tonight is to really talk about those three things. And we like to bring in guests that are entrepreneurs, I call change evangelists, and also people that are all about community. I am so happy to be joined by my only number one super co-host, Miss Vicky Fitch in the house. You can find Vicky Fitch at vickyfitch.com. And just as a, make sure everyone understands, it's not Vicky Fitch, it's Vicky Fitch, as Anthony Iannarino would say. So, but we're very happy to have her here today. So I want to welcome all of you here tonight. It's been a little while since we've had a chance to get back together on Blab, but we are here tonight for a couple of reasons. And the number one reason is we want to interview entrepreneurs in their space that have not only demonstrated leadership, but also have demonstrated, I call just being a great human being. And people have really made changes, not only in their personal lives, but also in the lives of the people they surround themselves with. So tonight we have a very awesome person. He's just an awesome human being. He's a millennial speaker. He calls himself a change evangelist. I just call him a Yoda because he kind of Yodas everything, I would think about it. I would personally call him my Snapchat tech support guy, because I'm always snapping him questions about Snapchat saying, Brian, what do I do here? And he becomes my tech support guy. So I'm really happy to invite into the room Mr. Brian Fanzo. So let's get Brian into the square, Vicky. And
I don't know that Brian wants people to know that he does that, because all of a sudden his tech support hotline is going to go crazy. So Brian, I don't see you trying to get in yet. If you can try and get in, we would love to have you. Again, he is a crazy fun guy. He's a crazy cool guy too, but he doesn't act like he's crazy cool. He doesn't act like, Mr. All That and a bag of chips. So we adore him. Brian.
Hey. Thank you guys for the kind words. Excited to be here. I had to remember how to get back on Blab. That's
wow.
Brian, you can only start that when you're 40 or over. You're not allowed to pretend that you can't remember how to get on Blab before that.
Well, I clicked the button. I said, I like looked away for a second. I'm like, wait, why don't they see my request? And then I remembered, oh yeah, I have to click like the settings is now on the second page. So it is a little bit different than what it used to be.
Is that like C:\/
Yes.
Just making sure.
Yes, no doubt.
That's what it feels like. So Brian, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. We're, Brian, you and I know each other, over a year, but I feel like I've known you a good part of my life. I mean, we've talked personal, we've talked business, we've talked about a lot of different things. We talked about personal growth. I've always tried to give you sort of my perspective on helping you on your journey, and you've definitely done some great stuff for me. And I just want to say in a public forum, I'm grateful for your friendship, not only in a business side, but I'm also grateful for your personal friendship. And I just want to make note of that. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that. That's it's part of this power of social media. I think it'll probably be a theme, but I think part of that idea that we're able to connect without borders, no matter where we live, no matter what we're doing, is probably one of my favorite aspects. But actually, it is my favorite aspect of social in general. And so, I mean, that's what it's all about right there. So I appreciate the kind words.
No, thank you so much. So people would tend to think of you now, Vicky, help me out here. When you think of Brian, right, you think he's everywhere. I mean, he's been a confidant and a almost a partner of Gary Vaynerchuk, who's, the social media Yoda, entrepreneur extraordinaire. Literally, he's everywhere. And I would tend to say, and I say this with love, Brian, that people might call you a guru, but I want to hold that thought. So I'm not going to call you a guru, which kind of leads into what we really want to talk about tonight. And we want to get into sort of the spirit of who Brian Fanzo is today, because I know you've gone through this evolution, not just as this tech guy in SAP, and we'll talk about Cloud Talk, we'll talk about Summit Live. I want to talk about who Brian is the person today and what Brian is doing to change lives. That's what it comes down to. But what I'd like to do right now, I'd like to open up with a quote that I want to read. This quote is from Michael Moore. And for those of you who know who Michael Moore is, he's a documentary film guy. He's pretty controversial in certain ways, but everyone's got their spin on stuff. So this is a quote from Michael Moore in an email sent to Joe Berlinger, who is the actual, he actually produced the film. by Tony Robbins, I Am Not Your Guru. And for those of you that have little kids in the room or may have little ones around, and especially Vicky Fitch, I want to just warn you that you might want to put your headphones on because I'm going to read it verbatim, and there might be some questionable words. So you might want to just kind of hold off on putting your speakers pretty loud. So here's the quote. So this is the email from Michael Moore to Joe Berlinjo. He said, 20 minutes into the film, I started to feel for you and the shit I knew some would give you. So Moore commiserated. He said that you could choose to make this movie through the lens of optimism and not cynicism was pretty refreshing, unexpected, and somewhat cathartic. I instantly wanted thousands to see it because I believe it was actually saving lives. That's how important I thought this movie was. And fuck everyone in the documentary community and critics who are pissed off because you didn't make some cynical, mean-spirited film and make it sound like it was hopeless. It actually turned out to be a kind film. So the quote ends by saying, Berlinger finished reading it by saying, the reason that the quote is meaningful to me, he explained, is that there are some critics who have dismissed the film. And for those of you, and let me get off track here, for those who have not seen the film, this may not make sense to you. After you watch the film, this quote will mean everything to you. He explained that there have been some critics who have dismissed the film as a one-sided promotional why, because I'm not looking for the dirt. I'm not looking to take the guy down. So really, it's sort of an eye-opener for me to say, hey, this is Michael Moore, who sort of pounds on the head of everybody about him being right, him being a cynical documentary filmmaker, turning it into, hey, that's a pretty cool film. That's a pretty interesting film. So for those of you, we're talking about I'm Not Your Guru documentary film about Tony Robbins. It's really an inside look at business mastery. It gives you sort of that behind the scenes view on how one man can change millions of lives, and always changed mine. So I want to set that the tone. I want to set that the tone for today's interview with Brian. So Brian, you talked about, I know you've seen the film. You've watched it a few times.
Three times, I think, at least.
3
right?
times.
Yeah, I didn't get through the third one, but I almost the 3 times.
Right. Thank you for correction. It was Date with Destiny. It was not Business Mastery, Date with Destiny. Thank you for the correction. So Brian, knowing who you are, I want to tell every people who you are, and then I want to connect who you are and how the film has affected you right now and what it's doing for you right now. How is it impacting your life and you changing lives from where you were before you watched the film to where it is today?
Oh, I love that. Good job on the first question. I like, for me, I think probably that's one of the weirdest, oddest questions. And I believe it was, I'm gonna have to pull that blog post while we're talking. There was a blog post, I think it was CC Chapman, wrote a blog post about the only question that he always answers differently is, what do you do for a living? Right. And it was for him, it was like the hardest question. Eventually he became okay with the fact that it was always evolving, always changing. And I think that's partially what I've come into the idea where I say I'm a change evangelist. And I even like laugh at it myself sometimes because like that sounds very guru-ish and like kind of, like I'm selling a little bit of snake oil and some things. But, I always loved learning a little bit about everything. And I started to do a lot of self-assessment over the last couple of years. And, I was the only person in high school that played on the high school baseball team, was a thespian and liked computers. And then I went to college and I was a fraternity guy. I played college hockey and I was a computer science major. And not one person was in any of those similar areas. But looking back, what I really loved was being able to bridge those cultures, the backgrounds in those people, and bring them together. And my fraternity tripled in size by the time I left. And I like to attribute that a lot to the idea that I was opening them up to people, experiences, and places. And I didn't come to that realization probably until the last year or so, because I thought for a long while technology was my passion. Mm-hmm. And I like to say, I'm not a computer science major. I'm more of a translator of geek speak. I can understand code. I work really well with developers. I had 32 developers that worked for me at one time, and it was great. They all lived around the world. But what I really found was it wasn't really the technology that I loved. It was what the technology enabled us to do, and that's really embrace change. And I guess this is kind of how it segues into that movie. Tony Robbins, for me, I had heard of him and known of him, but about a year and a half ago, I guess I went through this time in my life where I was rising in what I was doing, and I had lots of friends in high places. And I started to realize that a lot of those people were not friends. They were friends in the idea that they supported me on my way up. And then as I got to where I was, they weren't as supportive, kind of not to my face, but really kind of in general. And I for a while blamed people because I thought I couldn't believe like these people, but I started to realize that a lot of it was my expectations. A lot of it was understanding like the difference between someone that is a business friend, someone that's a business, partner, or someone that can enable me. And then also someone that is a friend that you want to keep close, but you know that this isn't someone that you could trust and kind of grow from. And I'm kind of I love Gary Vaynerchuk, but I'm the opposite in Gary. Gary always says, he doesn't read other people's books. He doesn't listen to other people's podcasts because he believes it's gonna polarize what's in his head. I'm the opposite.
Right.
I like to believe that the more I consume, the more I listen, the more I learn, the more I will become better at turning that into who I am. And I remember, Gary Vee and Jay Baer were two books that I read really early on, and I had reached out to a bunch of people saying, who do you look up to? Who are people that you look at? And Tony Robbins' name kept coming up. And I said, I really do have to better understand what's going on there. So I had the audiobook. I did the audiobook. Right. And over the last year, a lot of what I've been looking at is I never thought of myself as kind of an inspirational or motivational speaker. I was a practitioner and a computer guy that loved training and loved speaking. But really, it was the Periscope Summit last year when I changed my entire keynote about 2 hours before going on stage. And I did completely what I called, I even said, I tweeted out and said, it's a fluffy keynote. Because for me, it was fluff because it wasn't technology and wasn't training. But really from that moment on, from that presentation, so much has changed kind of just on how I looked at that. And so I've learned that my true passion and what gets me up every morning is connecting great people with great people to do great things. And the entire time I watched the Tony Robbins documentary the first time I was super emotional. So it was not it wasn't a state where I felt like I consumed it to learn. Right. I consumed it as if I was in the audience, and I give that credibility to like how the story was kind of told. But the second time through, I feel like I was trying to absorb it from the sense of what really Tony was doing. And not that I want to be Tony Robbins, but understanding that emotional connection and even his thought process on, when he was out, they were asking, like, my favorite question of the whole show was someone asked him, are you afraid of giving the wrong advice?
Yes.
And he's like, yes. I'm not giving my advice. I'm helping them discover themselves. And I was like, it gives me chills now. Right. Like,
you think about it. And what it does. So Brian, let me ask you this question. And by the way, welcome to the show, everybody. We have Brian Fanzo, a millennial speaker, and we're kind of getting into the heart of not only Brian's life and where he's kind of come from. And Brian, I am literally on the edge of my seat. Can't wait for you to answer these questions, because I know the Brian Fanzo that I met a year and change ago is not the Brian Fanzo I'm speaking to now. And I'm so pumped to hear that. So when you flipped on Netflix, because we all did that, we just gotta put it on. I can't wait to watch it. What was your expectation when you hit that click the play button? What were you thinking at the moment? Because I know when you looked at it the second time, you had a different view. What were you thinking the very first time when you hit the play?
Well, I can tell you, I wasn't expecting the F-bomb coming up 10 times in the first 3 minutes. Like, I almost had a heart attack and started hitting the buttons to go get my headphones because my kids would be like, Mom, what was that? But other than that,
you have to get Vicky.
That's a good. It is a good point. And actually, I liked how he even answered that question. Right, he answered the question about the language, and he actually his answer was the opposite of Gary Vee, where Gary Vee said it's just who he is and it's how he brought up in his New York side. Right. Tony's using it as a strategic storytelling and emotional, evoking, and I love that way of it. But I actually thought, and this will sound. The truth is, I actually thought I could multitask during watching it because I wasn't sure that I would be connected to the content or connected to the experience he was getting. I was more like, hey, I want to experience what he's talking about. I got on the Facebook Live. Vincenzo messaged me and said, hey, he's doing a Facebook Live, and Amy Schmitastic won a very cool trip to San Jose from Tony on that Facebook Live. And actually listening to that Facebook Live actually is kind of what inspired me to go back to watch it the second time, because the way kind of Tony talked about like how he picked things. But my first impression was I was kind of expecting to enjoy it and be entertained. Not sure if I felt like I was captivated. And I was definitely captivated. I like you, I teared up and was holding it back that first introduction. And then I think it's, 28 minutes in when, the girl that ends up making Tony cry as well. Right. Just seeing that come together. And I think even I love studying the human condition, and probably something that most people don't know. But one of the things that's probably helped me be as successful as I am on stage was my time as a semi-professional poker player, and the amount of studying I did on nonverbal cues and the human condition, because I was not a math guy. I love the sport, but I read more books on poker than I have on anything else in my life, even more than marketing or business. And so much of that is just understanding, watching that back, like watching the people's eyes that they pan to, and watching even Tony's demeanor, where he has his front foot forward, and then as the person's getting emotional, he kind of revolts back, giving that person comfort. But as soon as they kind of go away where they're not being transparent, he comes back into them. And those kind of things to me are like that I can just get lost in that kind of insights, because that is really how all of these things come together. I mean, anybody can get up there and clap and try to, really inspire. And I think that's really what that quote that you read at the beginning was, because I didn't know what to expect from that standpoint, but it blew me out of the water in a much more positive way than I expected. And I was surprised to see some of the haters, and I put it in the side there. I think for me, and I don't know, I wonder, Anthony, if it was the same for you or Vicky, like there was a little bit of jealousy in the sense that Tony really has something that is just magical with these people. And it's not jealousy that you want to do that, but it's like, wow, like I don't know many people that would say I would not mind having that ability to do that, even if it's just one or two other people. Right. And I think that's what evokes some of the haters, that they look at that and come jealous and kind of push things away and throw mud at what they can't do, rather than looking at it and saying, this is pretty awesome. And how can I take things away from this to be better?
So you know what he said, Vicky, go ahead. I know you want to say something, but I wanted to.
Well, I was just going to say that as you're looking at that and you're talking, he reads those social cues, but remember how he totally took that guy down and goes, dude, like, this is painful. I was thinking the same. I'm sitting there going, oh my God, he's spouting off what he thinks he's supposed to say. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, somebody save him. And then he goes, okay, this is painful. I got to go there. And so, you get to see that's how people react. And then the one guy, when he drops his shoulders down, he says, see, now your body's responding. And that's what I think we as entrepreneurs have to continue. That's what I always look for when I'm coaching and training people. What's the difference in the micro movements in your face? What's going on with you as a person? Because if you're like this, then you're stressed out.
Yeah, Vicky, that's a great point. And I want to bring that back to you and to everyone. And by the way, thank you for everybody for joining. We're here at Anthony Conklin Show live. I don't even know how to speak right now because I'm just so captivated by this great conversation. Please share it out on Twitter and Facebook. Invite friends. I've invited, several hundred people in Facebook, and I'm seeing a few of them pop in. Thank you for joining. Brian and Vicky, I'm the kind of person, and either, I don't know if it's a credit or a fault, and to Tony's point, don't beat yourself up. Don't be so hard on yourself. I looked at Tony's eyes and I'm like, I got to find something where I know he's BSing, or and I love the guy. I'm probably I'm not a fan, but I admire him for 35 years of my life. And I was looking to find out, he was so connected with people. Like, I looked in his eyes. I thought he was looking at me. I thought he was looking right at me. I'm like, this guy's got it figured out, but in a way that it's so authentic and so genuine. Now, given that he's been doing this for 35 years, I don't think he was like this when he first started. So to my point, Brian, as a speaker, Vicky as a speaker, and to everyone else who's a speaker in the room, I think the great takeaway is having eye contact with people and really kind of getting into their head and their psyche. Just your authenticity gate just opens up completely. They call it the Johari window. Your Johari window just completely opens up, right? And I know Greg's saying it's NLP. I don't care what it is. I just think it's the human, the authenticity of a person. I mean, when he looked at that kid and he looked him in the face and he said, "Why do you want to commit suicide?" I know I'm digressing, but I want to just a gentle point. He said, "Why do you want to commit suicide?" He said, "Well, I have many, many highs, and then I go very low and I just want to get out." And he goes, "It's probably the freaking red sneakers, isn't it?" And he totally broke his state.
It was so random, right? I thought of Brian. I thought, there, he's got Brian sneakers on.
So Brian, if you meet Tony and you have an intervention, he's going to go after your sneakers.
I know. I'll probably have yellow ones on or red. We'll be in trouble. Right.
So I think, and the takeaway for that portion of the film is that you have to be so connected to the person you're speaking with. And as a speaker, and you know this, Brian and Vicky, you've done this, and I have the opportunity to speak to 1,000 people, coming up, and I'm really excited about it. It's just the person you speak to, you got to look at them right in the eye, and you have to just really be penetrating into their soul. And I think that's what broke this guy's state, to have him go, okay, I got it. And then he basically turned everything around. I mean, I'm kind of giving all the stuff. He turned around where he felt completely like liberated. So what did that mean to you? Not only as a person, Brian, but from where you are today as a speaker, like you probably might not have looked at that years ago. You might not have paid attention to it, but now seeing the film, how does that affect you as a speaker and what you do every day when you wake up and you snap and you tweet and you live? How does that affect you? How did that affect you?
I'm gonna cover that in a second. But if you guys didn't see the very first, Tony Robbins on Blab with this interview, Anthony, for credit, there's lots of us that could have taken an interview, and we love to be hosts. And you knew and understood him, and the interview that you did, I think, is one of the best interviews that I've watched for someone that was able to ask questions and get out of the way, but at the same time demonstrate your appreciation for him and your knowledge of what he wanted to cover. And I thought you did an absolute amazing job, even if I wasn't the lucky one that could be able to come on there for a minute and ask one question. But I look at that interview and it kind of comes in this full state where, and Tony actually talks about it on the show as well. He says, part of his job is to be engaged, be passionate and connected with that person, but in the same moment, be able to take the conversation so that it affects the entire room, and that the entire room is part of it. And I look at that as that skill set is the ability to, I think it's compassion for the person, but at the same time, having a passion for an understanding of like the human condition, right? Because he says that red shoes, he says cuss words, oftentimes because you come in there with your own set of frame of reference. You come in there like, if Tony asks me, I'm going to say this, and then he tries to get you off there. And if you're not getting off there, when he asked that kid the red shoes, the kid didn't even like acknowledge it at first, right? And then he like looks at his shoes and he kind of talks about it. And then the pace at which he spoke afterwards, the pace at which he spoke directly after Tony kind of took that off of him, it really allowed him to really not only let loose, but to forget what his preparation kind of taught him, and allowed him to really kind of invoke that. And that's part of why, the weird segue into live video, like I believe live video captivated me more so than YouTube. And it allowed me to be, I had YouTube videos, I had my speaker reels, but live streaming has allowed me to be on more stages in more businesses. And I think part of that is just that ability to be able to roll with the punches. And it was the number one characteristic that I worked for when I hired my employees on the developer and cybersecurity space. Is I said, I can train you on a tool, I can help you understand our culture, I can work with you, but if you can't roll with the punches, when we are overseas and your laptops don't show up, or if all of a sudden your flight gets canceled and you have to move everything, if you can't roll with the punches, you're not going to be able to not only handle this job, but the life that we live today. Change is so fast and such a crazy rate of change that you really have to be able to roll with that punches, go down a rabbit hole, understand. And I think keeping yourself together, I think like that kind of thing. And, for me, I told this story earlier. I was on Matt Cain's podcast this morning. And one of the things for me, I remember looking up to like the Ted Rubin and Gary Vee. And I remember, like the Seth Godins. And I said, man, I will never get that many followers on Twitter. And I want to tell my story. And I simply said something. And actually Brent Schlenker, who's in the comments there, Brent actually was was the one that hired me after I left the Department of Defense. So he hired me at IO Digital Center, Data Center. So shout out to Brent. And actually he's bringing me out to his conference in October to speak and be one of the keynote speakers at a learning convention that he has there in October. But Brent, throw the link in there so people can see that event. But one of the things like that I remember thinking was, I'm going to out engage every single person.
Right.
And I said, you know what? That is something that I believe A, I can do, B, I want to do. And I think I can actually, that will allow me to stand out from the noise. That will allow me to do what I was doing. And I can tell you it's, I don't think I understood the scale and the amount of time and the amount of pure effort that had to go into that. But that was that to me was a big moment for me because, still to this day, I have a team. I'm very lucky for people. We help schedule content and do some of the things on social, but every @ reply, every single mention of the 140,000 tweets that I've sent, every one of those @ replies and replies have been written by me. Not a single one has been replied or engaged by anybody but me. And I take pride in that because I think that's allowed me to build the community that I've had and being able to have this success. And I think that's kind of what Tony is doing in that essence of, being so engaged. And those people do feel like they're in a room alone. And then they kind of feel when everybody's giving them the love and the hugs, it's like, wow, I am here in the entire room, and that entire room is impacted, which is, I think, a very powerful thing.
So, Brian, did you feel, and by the way, welcome to the show, everybody. It's the Anthony Conklin Show with my host, Vicky Fitch. We are interviewing millennial speaker, change evangelist, and reborn and sort of, I would call upgraded in a good way, Brian Fanzo. Make sure you follow him at iSocialFans.
BF 2.0 in the house.
And we're talking about not just Brian's career, which is fabulous, and I am so proud and just so humbled to watch him skyrocket. I always use that term with him. I know a lot of people, but skyrocketing to me is just the term I use with Brian because he's really on a path to some fantastic stuff, and I'm so proud to be in the front seat watching him really boost his career. And we're talking about the documentary film by Joe Berlinger, which is called I Am Not Your Guru. And it's a movie about Tony Robbins and sort of an inside look, a behind the scenes look at Date with Destiny. So Brian, did you feel that the film helped you with your engagement? Because I know live streaming was sort of like that tipping point for you, right? Live streaming helped, but did you think that the film helped you? Did you get any tools or tips about engagement? Because I took a boatload of stuff away from it. I don't want to make this about me. I want to ask about you. And then, Vicky, I want to ask your thoughts about it as well.
I think for me, time will tell a little bit on that side of where we're at. I think it actually it's probably inspiring me to be okay with because Snapchat for me has allowed me to really let people in. Like I've always been extremely transparent with my life and what I share, but transparency is also, it's as much as what you share as it is a window into who you are. And I think for me, I've been sharing that, and I've had a lot of people that have helped me and they've inspired me. They'll say things like, I want you to do more humor, Brian. We like when you're silly, or Brian, share something about the entrepreneur journey that you surprised you, and some of these things. And then when I share them, not only do I feel that people are encouraged by it, but that it's also that idea that we're not alone and that people are finding immense value there. And I think sometimes I take that, and you said it's not even just the fact that we're not alone, but it's the fact by sharing our vulnerabilities, we all learn together. And I actually kind of look at that as until you share your vulnerabilities, you'll never kind of realize that true power of that. And that's what Tony's doing there. And like the people that come back the next day, that if you haven't watched the movie, I actually liked almost the next day when the people come back and the one girl says like, my dad, these are the text messages that my dad sent after she had this conversation. And, that's like like when you see Shark Tank and they come back and they say a year later, like I like to hear what a year later is even more than I like the pitch. Cause I want to see what those results are. And I think that to me is something that is really powerful. And I think the other part is, I love to be on stage. I love to talk, and like the opportunity that he has that many hours on stage and going full speed ahead there, that to me is also something to strive for. Not to strive for to be a Tony Robbins, but to be able to have so much that you can give and so much that you can empower, that you could be able to command that stage and people are willing to kind of put it out there. Because I think being able to not only, he sells out around the world, right? And there's lots of that kind of concept, but it's the idea that the people are really kind of setting aside their lives, and they're kind of almost dedicating themselves to that spiritual awakening for that.
It's 6 days. It's 6 days.
It's 6 days, and I would someone tagged Brian Kramer.
11 to 11. It's
Brian
12
Kramer
hours a day.
Yeah,
Brian Kramer and Courtney Kramer. They actually went together to Tony Robbins, and they're actually one of the ones that when I had kind of heard about him and I started listening to the book, they kind of inspired me 2 South by Southwests ago to said, hey, no, this was enlightening. This was a massive game changer for us. Yeah. Thank you, Gilbert for JS for tagging him. But yeah, Brian had a lot to say, but yeah, it is it's inspiring in the sense that with all that's going on in our world, and it's very interesting because my Snapchat yesterday was very much about just my own rant of what I'm just disappointed in a lot of what we share and how we share it and why we hate. And watching Tony Robbins again after I shared that, and then sharing more of like the love and the happiness side of it, I do love being inspired that humanity is amazing, and there are bad apples, and there are things that we have to address and we can't ignore. But at the same time, we can look at these things and say, if things get better, shit happens, life happens, change happens. Sure. And I think that was probably one of the bigger things for me, like as an overall takeaway.
So you found that the film as a whole not only just made you think differently, but I have to go back to the term that Michael Moore uses, which is life-changing, right? We go through things every day. I know I do. And, I know you have 3 daughters, right, Brian? When you look at your daughters, yep. I'm sure they change your life every single day just when you look at them. You don't realize it, but they change your life every day as much as you change theirs, right?
Oh, yes.
And I know, Vicky talks about her family and she changes their lives and they change her life. I know when I look at my boys, they change my life every day. I think the film reminded me that, listen, you get one swing at the bat, you get one swing at the bat. And if you have an opportunity to really be vulnerable and be open to change and to be the best version that you can be, then you should definitely do it. I know Vicky talks about that as a coach. And for those of you that don't know, Vicky is an amazing coach. And in an effort to be completely transparent, Vicky is my business coach. So just so you know, she's changed my life and helped me in many, many different ways. She helped me understand the value of my story, which helped me get the interview with Tony. She really was instrumental. She won't give herself that credit, but I'll give her that credit. She was just freaking awesome helping me do that. So I love you for that. Thank you. Many kisses back to you as well. So Brian, I want to fast forward into the film a little bit and fast forward into your career. But Vicky, I wanted to turn it over to you for a minute. How are we doing with people? Any questions in the box? I want to make sure we leave time. I want to go an hour tonight. So we got 20 more minutes to go. I want to go full hour instead of 30 because I want to give a chance to have people ask questions. Brian, you good with the hour? Is it?
I have time after the hour, so I can stay as long as you guys.
Okay,
can stay,
great,
so.
Awesome. So Vicky, any thoughts, any input so far? I want to kind of keep this rolling along. I think we're just dropping some great content here. Any thoughts?
I think first of all, to just say a quick, notification that, this is the first blab that's been on that has actually had some content. And I think that's what people are really, really connecting to. Brian always delivers amazing value. And so do you, Anthony. And so I think that that's really, encompassing this community. And when you're delivering a message as powerful as dealing with people's emotions and how they can transform, Anthony, you and I got invited by Tony personally after that, after the interview. So we are going to, I think it's UPW, right? Coming up
in November. Yep.
In November. And so, you watch something like what he did with Date with Destiny, and you realize that you have to, I'm always a pretty vulnerable person anyway, but you have to you have to let the guard down if you want people to actually change your life. And that's what I think that the show will do. Somebody like you, Brian, like you said, you're already exposed, and yet there's always barriers that, it's like you kind of, people go into that thing thinking, oh no, I'm gonna stay here. I'm all good. And that Tony says, so who are you guys haven't had any transformation yet at all? And
right.
Who? It's those people that are like, I'm not, I'm fine, that don't do it. So when we let that down, and I think that's where you come in, Brian, I think you're almost like this adorable little teddy bear that just kind of goes, hey, you put people at ease where they can just say, okay, let me check out that Snapchat. This guy's really cool, but yet he's got a really good head for business and he's delivering this value. So wait, maybe I don't have to act like, okay, I'm too cool for a millennial, or I'm too old to deal with a millennial, or I'm too young that you really kind of bridge that gap between generations. And I think that's something that you should embrace in a really big way, is that's a gift that you have, Brian. It's a real gift. And I hope you recognize that.
I've recognized it more. And I look at, like for me, my dad was an entrepreneur, inspired me. He we had a family frozen yogurt shop when I turned 14, and it made no money. And the reason that we had it was because he wanted to get to know all of his son's friends. I was the oldest son, and he had it every single year. We all worked it, and all of our friends worked there. And I had to fire one of my friends before I was 16 years old. I got to hire my friends. I got to have lots of those experiences. Then, like even throughout my I was the youngest president of my fraternity in the history of my fraternity. I got voted in as a sophomore. They had to rewrite the bylaws. And part of that was like, how do you relate and inspire and connect with juniors and seniors in a fraternity type scene? And I was also, assistant captain of my hockey team at the time. And even at that kind of point, like so many of those things for me, and I always talk about the first, I was able to grow my team to 32 employees, but for 3 of those years, I had 12 employees, and I was the youngest, and they all reported to me. And I think for me that I had that experience of, and I always say it's a millennial mindset rather than the age you were born, because
yes.
I was lucky that they never looked at me as the young guy. They did challenge me sometimes in the sense of like, well, you don't have that experience, but they would look at me and say, give me the chance. And I was always willing. I've always believed, and it's even kind of what the shirt, like I look at like, I love empowering creators, do what creators do, and that kind of sense. And I wanted to address, Mark Fidelman was talking about transparency on the side here.
Yeah.
And I actually think transparency is something that is yet to be fully discovered and empowered, because the brands that have leveraged and understand the transparency have done a really bad job of celebrating that and why that was successful, because I believe that's, to drive true change, you must celebrate those that are willing to take the great risk, so that the others that are afraid of great change can actually see that. And I believe, for me, I'm transparent across the board. What brands I work with, someone snaps me and asks me how much my speaking fee is, I tell them immediately. Yep. For me, the risk versus reward, the understanding, yes, I might have lost some business. Yes, I might have had someone, but I look at that as an element for maybe someone's going to give me feedback there. Maybe someone's going to, and I don't see a lot of barriers. There are some things, and I always tell people, I don't believe everyone has the same transparency, but I believe we have to look at risk versus reward in everything we're sharing and say, what am I willing to risk? And what is the reward I'm willing to gain? And I talk about it with my kids. And like I put technology in place that said if there was a bomb threat or the word lockdown was tweeted within a mile of my kid's school, I get a notification on my phone for it. So for me, sharing it, and if someone finds out their school, there's a little bit, I look at that as risk versus reward and how I'm kind of preparing for it. And I think the brands that I work with, the other influencers that I work with, I think sadly, so much of the people that believe you have to hold on to it are the people that also believe that collaboration is not the key. And I truly, truly believe, and the chapter is on my wall right now, collaboration is the future of innovation. And I believe it with every fiber of my being. And I think when we stop holding on to information because we think it makes us smarter or makes us stronger or more successful, and we start sharing that information, I believe we all grow faster and innovation happens at a faster rate.
I always dropping nuggets, Brian. I could go after everything you said by commenting on it, but I think you just did an elegant way of addressing 2 or 3 questions I know I had. But what I want to do now, I want to kind of turn it over to Vicky. Vicky has some questions that are coming in the chat. I want to be able to answer those questions, and then I want to get back into the film and then have it reference to your life and some things that have affected you. And I want to go back to changing lives and expectations; those are really important. And then I want to open up for the box for people to come in and ask you questions directly. So that work for you guys?
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
Vicky,
Nick's wondering, what are you doing on stage that you are taking to live platforms? I think he means the social media platforms.
Yep.
One of the things with me I've always loved nonverbal cues, right? So I always study people, and the weird element, and it happened about in January, was that my live audience came over to Snapchat. And I like to think I have a little bit to do with that and so many people there. But what I'm learning now is that I've always said the most important element of live streaming is not the person broadcasting, it's the person viewing. I mean, Periscope won the app of the year, and 92% of their users did not use its main feature, which is the broadcast button, right? They're consumers and content. But I actually started to look at it and do my own due diligence to study how some of my biggest fans would share on Snapchat, so that when I see them asking a question on Periscope, it actually can contextualize, because I've seen their digital eyeballs. I've seen what they're going through. And when they ask me a question, I think it actually adds a little bit more to it, because I do that same thing on stage. And when I'm reading nonverbal cues, it's not just everybody who holds their hands. Like, to understand that in the shortened way, you have to get a baseline of a person to know what their highs and lows are, what their resting state is, and then go from there. And so I pick 3 people, right, left, and center, every single time I get on stage. I don't know who they are before I get up there, but as I see the eye contact, and sometimes I will adjust who they are depending on how the show goes. Or I'm like, well, that person's way too big of a fan. Like, they're not giving me any non-bias, or that person's falling asleep. And but I've taken that a little bit to my approach. And even like I love Twitter videos, and I've now been a little bit more strategic in knowing the people that really resonates with that, and really trying to leverage some of these cool things towards those people that I've kind of learned a little bit more about their lives. So I think that's probably something that I really try hard to take from the stage, to my platforms.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, that's good input, and gives people kind of, something to look for, especially some of the people in the audience are speakers or want to be speakers. So as we're looking at that, Mitch wanted to know, like, what your best takeaway or lesson that we've had from, the Tony Robbins content. And I think you can kind of look at that the same way, whether it's Tony Robbins on stage, or whether it's something that you saw in his event, because you got to see, again, as a speaker, you got to see how he's connecting in a different way, and how, I don't know how much you were noticing, but I noticed how he took one approach and then backed off, like he started to resonate. And so he's just very, very aware of that. And so I wonder if that had anything to do, or would have anything to do, with the change that you might make, but, answering Mitch's question. I
think for me, probably the biggest takeaway is really just the idea of, I've been lucky. I have a mentor that we do a SWOT analysis. We are doing it every quarter. Now we do it twice a year. And he does it for me. I haven't even worked for him. I worked for him in 2005 and 2006. And his name's Sandeep Kaul, and he's not on social media at all. But he's someone that allows me, to kind of understand, my strengths and weaknesses. But I think part of that self-assessment is I always understood what I didn't know. And I've been really fairly good at identifying that. I think I need to be a little bit better at identifying where, not only like what you were saying, what Vicky helped you, Anthony, but not only what your story is, but where your story can make the greatest impact. Mm-hmm. Because one of my early lessons as an entrepreneur was, even if I think this product or service or this show is great, if it doesn't resonate, if it doesn't, if it isn't compelling to others, and it isn't even compelling to brands or people that want to buy it, then it's really not something that you have to pursue. And I think that's like it's a tough thing to get over. And I can tell you, there's a lot of things that I've wanted to do, I've invested in, I've kind of put my foot out there, and I've had to pivot, I had to back off, and I've changed. But and I think that's probably the last one is I've fully embraced pivoting and changing. And people have probably heard me admit being wrong more than anyone else, because I have no problem with that, because me saying that something boldly is that I'm going to go and put my full foot forward. But then also at the same time, when I admit that I'm wrong, I'm okay with that, because I learned, and I want other people to learn with me. And I think that's probably one of the things that I think Tony, in a lot of those one-to-one conversations he had with people, it really wasn't self-assessment most of the time of that bad part. Yeah. But it was them self-realizing what they have to give, the good side of who they are. Mm-hmm.
I'd have to agree with that. I want to take one more question, Vicky, then I want to open up the box for people who want to actually jump in.
Only one more, because we have like 8 more.
Oh, we do? So. Okay. I'm just watching the time. Okay. If we have the time, let's go for it then.
Well, Brian said he has time, so you need to make a decision.
I have time.
Good. I have time. Keep going.
All right. So I'll just go in order so we don't have to kind of jump around. But Mitch, let's see. No, actually, Johnny wants to know, what would you tell the 20-year-old Brian Fanzo now if you could go back in time?
The 20-year-old me.
That's not very far from now. That's not very long ago. So
it's 15 years. I'm 35.
I love you, Brian.
The 20-year-old in me, I think, would be understand the importance of managing expectations, and while always looking at every opportunity, every person, and every experience as an opportunity to learn. And I think I thought I could learn from a lot of things, but I also knew that I could do anything. Like I firmly believe that I'm not good with cars, but if I need to change my power steering pump in my Jeep Wrangler, I could watch a YouTube video, learn enough about it, and go make it happen. It might not work forever, but I could make it happen. But knowing that you can do something and knowing that you have the ability to learn from people about what they're doing are two different things. And I think for a long time, I looked at that. And the other, probably third part of that is chasing your purpose early on in your life is let yourself kind of discover that, because I was set, and Brent, who was in here, who hired me, I know even during the interview when he interviewed me, I knew I wanted to help people embrace technology, and I was so set on that. And I actually think I missed multiple opportunities to grow my career early on because I had blinders on too early before I even had developed enough to understand what my true passion was.
I think that's really good, Brian, because I actually speak in schools and stuff, teaching kids that they need to learn how to dream, because everybody puts these expectations on them. Like, what's your career? It's going to be this, it's going to be that. And they don't learn how to dream. They don't learn how to get outside the box. And so I think that someone like you, especially as you look like you're about 18 anyways, because you're so youthfully beautiful, is that people look at you and they think, okay, well, if he can do it, they start to be inspired that maybe I can live my dream. And Brian, you've shared some of the other challenges that you've had. And so being able to share those challenges gives people hope too. And I think that's one of the things that, looking back to, finding mentors younger, or finding people that are ready to rock it and like own who they are from a young age, I think is really an amazing piece too. And something that you seem to certainly have embraced now. Let's see. The next question was, well, people want to know some stuff about your book. I think you might do that at the end, or did you want to talk about that now, Brian? They want to know about your book. What's the main topic? What content you're excited about? Do you want to talk about that now or at the end?
We'll talk about that at the end, because it's changed. So it's not, yeah, I'm excited to talk about at the end. So we'll talk about that at the end.
Okay. All right. And so what percentage of your presentations are customized for each audience, and how much do you kind of ad lib based on audience response and questions during the presentation? That's by Rachel.
So for me, I've been very blessed in the sense of, doing interview shows, and really, I've always loved talking. I love people. Part of what I've kind of learned as a speaker and I kind of integrated into what I'm doing is that, being able to have a strategy and a plan, and then being able to pivot and kind of go beyond that is something that I've been very blessed with. I can multitask. I can do a lot of things that I think that I've been trained into what I do. And it's not multitasking from the idea of doing two things 100%, but I feel I can do something 90% and most of the time better than most people, while doing a couple other things that with that other 10% of my mental capacity. And I think for me, most of my presentations, and this is something I'm learning, I had no idea that a lot of the bigger people on stage do one or two keynotes, and they do them for 2 or 3 years, the same keynote. And yep. I actually have one of the blog posts that I've written is that I could never start my own band, because I am afraid I would never be able to just play that one-hit wonder every single night at every single show. Because I not only do I love the idea of customizing it because of the landscape with change and all this new technology, right, but I look at, part of my sales, part of what I offer to the clients that hire me to speak is that I let them know that I will tweet and engage beforehand. I will show up to the event as long as I'm not the opening keynote. I will show up to the event hours beforehand. I want to absorb what's going on. And even Social Media Day San Diego a couple of weeks back, I ended up starting my keynote not on stage. The first 8 minutes, I sat in the very back row with a microphone, reading my slides. I had no plans on doing that at all when I got there that day. But what I realized was I love the challenge of after lunch. I love taking on the challenges of like when people don't want to do things. I know there's one thing for sure, that I know that I can bring the same passion every time. Like that's not something I don't have to ramp myself up. Like that's just who I am. Early on in my life, it was one of my early reviews. Someone told me, Brian, you're so passionate. If you read the phone book to me, I'd be excited. And I took it as a knock, because I looked at it and someone said, well, does that take it? Like, so I'm that passionate about all that other stuff. Does it lose credibility for what I truly am passionate about? And I've learned over time that wasn't how I need to take that. But right. When I'm doing my presentations, almost every one, I would say there's a 20% similarity in the actual slides themselves, but I've also learned rather than putting on the slide what I think people want to hear, I put on the slide what the story is about. And then I embrace that as the conversation's going. I use those nonverbal cues. I did the same slide deck 3 times in a row earlier on this year. And if you go watch the videos, they're all on my YouTube channel. I don't even know if I used the same examples once in those 3 presentations because the crowd went different. The one time someone like raised their hand in the middle of the presentation and I just took the question. And that question kind of took every one of my examples down a different rabbit hole. So I definitely love that idea of, customizing it and personalizing it to the audience.
I think that's the way it's supposed to be. So, and kind of going back to where we are, and for those of you just joining, welcome to the broadcast. This is the Anthony Conklin Show with my amazing host, Vicky Fitch. We're interviewing the amazing and the very passionate and very energy-filled Brian Fanzo. You can follow him at iSocialFans. He's everywhere at iSocialFans, so make sure you check him out. So we're talking a lot about passion. We know what your purpose is, right? We're going to get to the why in a second, but I want to flip back into the film real quick. I want to take us right through the film, and I want to get towards the end. I mean, there were a couple of examples in the film that really moved me. The suicide interview was pretty powerful, and then the gal who was caught up in this sex ring of God. And I mean, Brian, I don't know about you, man, but I was literally like choking up, like I couldn't hold back my tears. And then when I saw Tony cry, I'm like, oh, I'm done. I literally had to get my composure. But I think that the good thing that came out of it is that he really connected with her and helped her to see that all you really wanted to do was love, right? And we either do things out of inspiration or desperation, right? And she was inspired to be a loving person because that's just how she was wired, and that's how she took from that example. My father was an alcoholic, right? And I was inspired to not be that because I didn't want that as part of my life. You either learn, they say things in your life are either stories or examples, right? As they say, as Tony would say. And I look at it as, okay, that's a story on what not to do. So as we're going through the film, excuse me, and as we get to the part where, he asked this young lady to say, you get rid of this guy, pick him up, call him up on the phone. You got to cut him off. Right.
Right.
That was so powerful. And she's like, oh my God, you're not going to make me do it. And then he goes, I'm not making you do it. Right. I'm giving you encouragement. Now, the reason why I bring that up, 2 reasons, Brian. One is because I've had that personal experience with Vicky. I tell her, well, I want to do this. I want to do this. She goes, fine. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but you might want to think about this. Right? And Brian, I've told you this, and I'm going to love you and beat you up at the same time. I need to see Brian Fanzo on stage with Cisco, SAP, Microsoft, Apple. I want to see him on stage next to, Elon Musk. Why can't Brian Fanzo speak at the next solar conference where there's 50,000 people that attend, right? I'm actually working on something right now where a solar conference wants me to talk to them about Snapchat. I could spell it and use it, but if marketing, I need to talk to you. Right. So and Jeremy Warner, and I must give kudos to Jeremy Warner's in the house. He's amazing. He's the one who did my geofilters for Inner Solar 2016. Thank you so much, Jeremy. You're awesome. He created all those geofilters. He's just great. But I need people like yourself and people like Jeremy to kind of bring that story together. Because I think you're so destined for big effing things, man, like big, massive things. And I keep saying that to you because I love you and I care about you, but I say it because it's all true. And not just because Vicky told me, because she did tell me, but it's a chirping that's been in my ear literally since I was pushed in the pool at 5 years old, and I was told I was a fat little Coke bottle wearing glass kid who you're not good enough because you suck. And I learned that I got to get better, and I know that I'm better. And Tony was sort of my anchor through my entire life. So that's why I'm preaching him, right? So fast forward to the part I want to really address. This is sort of the heart of the film. I think the best part of the film is where they were a year later. Now, Tony said very specifically that he did not want to release the film right away. He wanted to give people a chance to see what it was like a year later and see what actually happened to these people. So without getting into the film, because this is not about I'm Not Your Guru, we're referencing it. Let's go and look at Brian Fanzo a year later, because it's been a year. It's been a year since I met you. I met you in March of last year. Okay, so it's a little more than it's a year and a half. Okay, and what's different for Brian today, right? of where you're going, what you're doing, how you're thinking, and has the film affected you moving forward?
I think one of the biggest things for me where I'm at is I'm better at defining my value. And I think someone wrote a comment about, percentage of speaking, and, and I think that comment I made about what I would tell my early 20-year-old self, I would probably tell my 33-year-old self the same thing. Because, when you walk down this path and you set expectations, and, Gary Vee's book had a massive impact on me. But one of the things that I didn't comprehend was it wasn't jab, jab, jab 99 times and then right hook. It was jab, 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 right hook. And I think part of what I've kind of learned in my journey is that if you don't have something to sell or something to buy, and you don't have something to kind of put that along the path, your growth, although you want to keep giving, that kind of thing does not progress kind of where you want to go. But yet the places where I did right hook, I saw immediate success. And for me, I guess my dad was a sales guy. My dad always told me everybody in a company sells, Brian. But I've never felt like a salesperson. I've never been great at that piece. And I actually now, a lot of my success is like people on my team are replying to my speaking engagements and allowing them to negotiate and do that. And, I'm excited that, this year in 2016, only 2 of all of my presentations I'm doing for free. The rest of them are paid opportunities. And the 2 that I'm doing are inbound and south social media marketing world. And they don't pay any speakers for either one of those. Yeah. And to me, that's a massive shift, because one of the things that I've told everybody on my Snapchat is that they looked at all the things that I was doing, the IBM events. I went to 18 IBM events in 2 years. I was doing them on my own dime. I was doing them where they would fly me there and I would pay for the rest of it. And then I would work at night, running a social media account just so that I could do the influencer type work during the day. And I don't regret that a bit. I'm actually, when I get a new speaking gig, one of my things is I'm mapping it back to free work that I did, because so much, all of my stuff comes from a relationship and so on, helping me out in that sense. And I think that also is kind of what the movie kind of shows as well, is that one of the things I thought was powerful, and we really hadn't said this yet, but almost every person he talked to, he made sure that they had a support person with them.
Yes.
Or the one girl who unfortunately was the best person in an entire situation where she was alone, she stands up in her chair and he says, pick out 3 men who are compassionate in their eyes, and they're going to be your uncles. That element, I think that's probably when I went on as an entrepreneur 3 years ago.
Thinking about that now, it's like, wow.
People told me, kept telling me that they should be a solopreneur. I should jump in there. It took me 2 years to realize there's nothing solo about being an entrepreneur. Yeah. And that's a hard lesson for me to learn. And I would say in the last year, probably the best lesson I've learned is in that side. And really, I'm still learning it. I can tell even the book comments, like what I have been always excited about in the book space is I never really wanted to write a book. And actually that was, I got my 20 minutes with Gary Vee, 3 years ago, and I used it the entire time to have him help me decide if a book was something I should do, if it's going to help me get to the path that I want to get to. And he didn't make the decision for me. He gave me his perspective on why he did it, what his results were. And I think now, rather than writing the book, and this is kind of like my social media journey, the first 8 months of my social media life were horrible. I hated social media. I thought it was way too much work because I was worried about posting what I thought other people wanted to hear rather than sharing my story and what I learned. And I think I now need to take that same lesson in the book space. And I'm gonna write the book that is coming out of my pores and that has been resonated, that is me, rather than writing the book that I kind of set out to write. And maybe that's the second book. And Jay Baer was one of the ones that kind of kicked me under the table a couple of weeks ago. And he's just like, it's a no-brainer. Like, stop overthinking it. And so that's one of those things, like, it's really interesting to discover about, like, entrepreneurship not being alone, and you need other people, but it's also probably, I've had the highest highs and the lowest lows as an entrepreneur. And from the outside in, a lot of people would look at the last 2.5 years as a very successful 2.5 years for me and my rise of what I've been doing. Right. But I can tell you the paycheck to paycheck months still exist, right? And I think the idea of, and a lot of that to me for the longest time was the idea that I was alone, or I was hiding that. And then when I would hear other people walk a path and then run into failure and say, Brian, I wasn't as lucky as you, or maybe Brian, I wish I would have known. That's why I've been a lot, if you're following me on Snapchat, you see that side, right? It's the side where it's like, dude, this is a grind. And it's not that I'm giving up. It's not that, but it's more of that side that says, we all are striving to do our best. And there are days I wake up and want to throw up. There are days that I look at my list and I realize that I wasted too much time on Snapchat and that I didn't, follow my own rules. And it's been an interesting piece on that, because financially, I would say I was better off where I was 3 years ago from a financial perspective of what I was making, and probably better off bringing in what I was a year ago. But I have set myself now where I am more comfortable in that space on where I'm going. And I am perfectly fine with that path now compared to before, trying to reach what I made when I was in enterprise, or trying to reach what I thought I needed. And now understanding how my goals work. That's that risk versus reward has been very helpful as well. And I tell you what, I owe a lot to that, just really the people around me that have really rallied and also supported and
five
really,
people. It's the five people you spend time with.
It is. You know what? And I think, I said that earlier, that I had to identify when I realized all of these people were supporting me, but that doesn't mean that all those people are my friends, or I have to take their advice, or I have to think less of them for not doing what I kind of wanted them to, or thought I wanted them to. And now my relationships with people are so much more fluid and so much more understanding, where I don't have these expectations for someone that they never set them. It was me, and I would get mad at them for not coming through for me. And then I had to kind of realize that. And so now I'm much more comfortable in that space as well.
So the takeaway, there's a lot of takeaways for that, but I'm pulling out, like, Vicky, I think you know where I'm going with this. You're being you, right? You're telling your story, not the story you think you want to.
For sure.
Right. You're telling your story, and you have to be you, because you'll monetize you in some form or fashion. Sometimes monetization comes in the form of money. Sometimes monetization comes in the form of relationships. I mean, think about the people that you hang around with, right? Vicky and I talk about this all the time. And I literally, and I say this with love of myself, I preach it. You are the product of the 5 people you spend time with. I know it's a quote. I know everybody says it, but you got to freaking live it. You got to live it, right? Who are the 5 people you spend time with? And those are the people who are going to encourage you to be the best person you can be. And I think, and if I can kind of wrap up what you're saying, is your evolution over the past couple of years. Listen, monetary is going to always change. Listen, for us, there's always more month at the end, right? There's always more month at the end because there is money, right? And it happens. We have days like that. And whether it's paycheck to paycheck, a month to month, or year to year, it's all part of your journey. And you're going to get there, and you're getting there. And that's why, and you talk about this more than anybody. I watch some pretty interesting people. I think you are the most, I guess, in my ear, Brian, about community. And I think the community is what takes you to new heights and puts you in front of people that you should. But I tell you, you got 2 pillars here. You got 2 bookends, that are not millennials, that are going to help you on your journey. And all the people in this room are going to help nudge you along and push you along. And I know Ted has become a very dear friend of mine. I know Ted is a big influence to you. I know Joel Comm is as well. I'm a little annoyed that Joel's not here, by the way. Just I'm going to note that. Vicky, note to self, okay? He gets a half a heart.
Yeah,
he gets a half a heart.
He gets this.
He gets a half a heart. So I hope he's okay. I hope he's not sick or something.
No, but I think I think that community aspect, it's interesting, and I owe a lot to Tim McDonald. If you guys know Tim does a lot of stuff now with No Kid Hungry. I'm on the social council for No Kid Hungry, but I didn't really understand what community was and how it was different from networking early on when I got into social media. Then I didn't really understand a lot about the time and investment. And I think last thing I didn't really truly understand was not only that idea that you give what you get and that you want to add value to it, but I also look at the community as a whole as something that, when you're building that community, it's okay. And this is definitely a struggle for me, is I really struggle at not making everybody happy. Like it is a pain point for me. And I'm much better in the last 3 to 4 months than I have been ever probably in my life, in the sense where I now realize that all of this time of trying to make everybody happy, trying to make 100 people happy, I really made nobody happy. And if I'm making 10 people happy, I can make all 10 of them happy. And I can kind of control a little bit of that. And I think, and I wouldn't even say control. I think I can have a better assessment on that. And it's still a struggle. I can tell you it's, even for me, I feel like I let people down whenever I negotiate a speaking fee and they tell me they can't do it. They don't have a budget. Maybe it will come out next year. To me, that like crushes my soul. Like, it's like, oh man, how can I make it work? I called up a sponsor of one of the other events and said, any chance you could pitch in to help me get to this event that I really wanted to speak at. And I think that's also part of that community aspect where I've realized, and it was actually a survey that I did, part of Snapchat and Twitter, Gary Vee was talking about how he replies out of his account, but he only replies to 5% of his total audience. And that's a lot because he has 2 million followers or whatever. Yep. But I asked people, would you rather him outsource a lot of that engagement and him reply to 80% of the people? Or would you love and remember that he only replies to 5% and hope that you're one of those 5%? Yeah. And I can tell you, I didn't expect the answer. And the answer was almost 100% of people said, I would rather have the 5% Gary Vee engaging to every single person that he engages to and being one of those people, those 5%. And that to me, I think allows me to take a little step back on some of the things where I don't have to be an end all be all to everybody. I don't have to answer every single question to everyone and kind of manage that expectation. Because damn it, if I'm not managing expectations for myself, everyone else is setting it for me, and allowing them to set expectations for me, I think is part of the reason why it's taken me on this crazy journey.
And it is a crazy journey. It really is. And it's an exciting journey. And, we could talk about this, for hours, but I'm so grateful for you to, share all that and to share a lot of what's going on in your life. I want to kind of turn the page once again and just reference back to I'm Not a Guru. Great movie. Brian, I appreciate your perspectives on it. Thank you for connecting your life to the movie. I think maybe we'll do another blab and then Vicky and I will talk about it and we'll give our perspectives, and then we'll have to summon Tony into the room. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it. I did get an email. I got an email.
Summon, because we can summon.
So
I think it's more like this. Wait, so we can hope, right?
So as we were on, I got an email from Tony has like 4 assistants, right? And then he has like a main one. He's like the head guy. And he emailed me back and he goes, Anthony, it's going to be tight because he's literally back to back to back to back. I mean, not back to back, literally back to back 10 times, because it seemed like this I'm Not a Guru. It seems it's really taken off like out of nowhere. I mean, it's really a one of a kind film and completely unexpected. And so he's just literally everywhere. So but I'm grateful to have his assistants get back to me. So it's just, maybe we'll try to get him on next time. So I want to turn the page. I want to thank everybody for being here. I'm so grateful for all of you to be here. It is all about community. And for those of you that are in the UK, I know Victoria's still here, so you're still up, and thank you for hanging out. You're so cool. I think she hung out for Brian, really. She really
thank you, Victoria. Victoria,
so good. But Brian, I want to talk about this book. This is all brand new to me. Tell me about your book. Tell me what inspired you to make it. What's the book about? Give us some nuggets on the book. When can we expect it? I'm gonna hit you hard with this one.
So, I think, for me, a millennial mindset has always been what I've been talking about in the book sense, because I love kind of working in the change, collaboration, and community. But, the really what's coming out is kind of really how the strategy and how I approach all things that I do is kind of under like that think like a fan concept, right? Which is like the mantra that I've kind of been working towards. So Think Like a Fan will end up being the book that I will end up writing, that is kind of now morphing into much more of the idea where it's sharing my journey and my approach to that mindset, that we're really how we can build a community, how we can think from a community perspective and the fan perspective, and really force it through that direction and the sense. And it's probably the easier part of writing, because I think the millennial mindset, I love really kind of, it's probably one of my favorite stories. And I don't know if I've told it here, but, someone at the Pentagon, I was presenting and a guy came up to give me a hug after I got off stage. And he said, Brian, you're the first person that's never wore I wore a suit jacket, but I didn't wear a tie. And he's like, and I'm so glad we did that. You're in a millennial. And I just love it that, you're a millennial that I can actually, we let up here and you did a great job. And he simply said, he's like, but at least you're not one of those millennials that has tattoos, because like, I would never let that happen. I simply like dead in his face.
I went down just a little bit.
I was like, someone that has tattoos, and his face, sunk immediately. And I was like, I think that's the wrong way of approaching it. I was like, maybe I can prove you wrong now. And I think that aspect, like I've always loved to take on that challenge. So think like a fan. I'm going to have kind of a tomorrow. I'm going to be on the Product Hunt chat tomorrow afternoon at 10 a.m. Pacific as well. And I'm going to get a little bit more into what is going to be around the book. So there's going to be another piece outside of the book as well than just the book itself. And then, a lot of what I'm trying to tie it into is, Summit Live, which I'm a co-founder of. We have our event February 22nd in LA. And then South by Southwest is March. And then, of course, Social Media Marketing World in May. And the book will be out in that time frame and allow me to kind of do the book tour starting after May, after Social Media Marketing World. But for me, I'm excited a lot because for the longest time, I still do it. I don't love writing blogs for other people's sites because early on in my career, someone had, they literally shut me down and said, we don't want you blogging for our company anymore because you blog like you talk, and nobody wants to have that representation. And it took me about 7 years, and I owe a lot to a blog called SteelerNation.com. And the guy reached out to me. He's like, I love your tweets. Like, I need to get you to blog. And I was like, I don't blog. And he's like, I just want you to write frames around your tweets. And he literally put my tweets in line. And this was 2009. So like, it wasn't embedded, but it kind of got me back into that idea of blogging. Actually, Brent Schlenker, who's in this room, when he hired me at IO, he started asking me, you should contribute in the blog. I started blogging more. And so I now am very comfortable in the sense of knowing how I write and how I talk. But I still, like when someone asks me to write a blog for someone else's site, I spend 5 more hours on it than I do for my own site because of my own piece of it. But from a book perspective, I'm excited to kind of do the book that really kind of fits into last name being Fanzo, it just makes too much sense.
Absolutely makes sense. So when do we expect that book to be out? I'm going to put you on the spot here, Brian. And I think recorded. It is on the record.
May timeframe of next year.
Okay, great, awesome. That's awesome. Great. This has been a fantastic. This has been a fantastic interview, and I think for the first time in a while, and to Vicky's point, there's a lot of content here. A lot of really great things were discussed. I'm happy that we had some of the crew, some of the original Blab crew here. And for those of you, again, that stayed up late or up early in the morning, thank you so much. Big shout out to our friends down under, Chocolate Johnny hanging out, Kara, and some of the new people that joined in. You guys are just really awesome. Really appreciate you being here. We were talking about Brian Fanzo, millennial speaker, change evangelist, and now author, soon to be author. So make sure you watch out for his book, soon to be released in May. Now, before you know it, May's going to be here like that.
Yeah, May next year.
Right.
Yeah,
it's going to be just like that. Before you know it, it'll be right here. So
yeah, I spent a couple hours over the weekend doing some writing, and I'll be doing I'll probably spend a lot more of those hours this week. And I had my daughter, so it was after 8 p.m. writing this last weekend. But this weekend coming up, I'll spend a lot of time on. And the other thing that I'm really loving kind of where live streaming is going, and I think it's gonna be exciting to see this fall. We're gonna bring my podcast. I co-host it with Daniel Newman. We're gonna bring that to 4 different enterprise events. Nice. Anthony, in the sense where you were talking about we're gonna be 4 of those events broadcasting live from their event, doing 9 to 10 interviews a day, interviewing different thought leaders, and we're putting in there our approach to getting us on stage at those events as well. So it's kind of like it's a fun vehicle because as much as I do love the stage, and I probably love that more so than anything else, the idea of interviewing and amplifying and really helping other people tell their story, especially the tech space, they're really bad at telling their own story.
Right.
I appreciate you guys spending the time, and I know we went way over time, but bringing me on and all that support and the love on that side, because it is that keeps us kind of going along as a team. I saw so many people friendly comments here in the chat that inspires many more nights of book writing and going after some of these keynotes. So I appreciate it a lot.
Thanks, Brian. I really appreciate it. So we're going to wrap up our, I know we've been on here a long time, but I want to thank everybody for joining. For those of you just joining now, hopefully you get a chance to watch a replay. Again, my name is Anthony Conklin. This has been the Anthony Conklin Show, along with my amazing co-host, Vicky Fitch, where we help entrepreneurs rediscover energy in their lives by connecting their passion and their purpose and really building that connecting bridge called Why. We had a very fruitful, helpful, content-filled conversation with Mr. Brian Fanzo. You can follow Brian at iSocialFans. Brian, why don't you tell people where they can find you quickly, get the most out of your content? I'm going to let you wrap it up with your content?
Everywhere and anywhere. I think consistency is key to stand out from the noise today. So iSocialFans on every channel, from Snapchat to Periscope. And then, I'm pushing, if you want to sign up for my email newsletter on my website, go ahead and do that. I hate email, therefore I will respect your email box. And I'm working on a very unique approach to my email newsletter that might be, kind of a first of its kind as far as what we're going to do with that. So if you want to kind of stay in the know there, do that, as well as I found out yesterday that yesterday was my 75th podcast interview that's in iTunes. So if you search my name, there's I've had 75, well, it's actually 76. I did one this morning. So 76 podcast interviews that are in iTunes. And that's something I didn't really know. Like, you don't. So now that I have that, so if you're interested in listening to some of the other perspective, even listen to stuff a year and a half ago, and kind of how some of this vernacular has changed and even my mindset's changed. Just put Brian Fanzo or iSocialFans in iTunes and you'll see all that fun content as well.
If the speed that he speaks changed, I don't. Maybe I think it got faster. I'm pretty sure it used to be like 120 and now it's like 180.
Well, as it says, he speaks fast and tweets faster. I think that's the right term. So I think
he used to. I'm not sure if his thumbs can move as fast as that.
I'm sure he can.
I don't think Snapchat's helped because now I have to get so much in 10 seconds. I can really drop things in 10 seconds, which makes it really hard.
All right, so we're gonna have a quick after blab. So, Vicky, I know you've been really silent, so I want to turn it over to you. So, everybody, Vicky Fitch, my co-host. Vicky, where can people find you and some of the things that you're doing? And you have a course that you have a book that you're working on. You're doing all kinds of stuff. Tell everybody what's going on with you.
I do. I have several books, and then some of the people in the chat were asking about my course. It's called The Rockstar Guide to Getting It Done. It's helping you get more done in less time, and really how to organize and structure your day so you won't get lost in Snapchat, Brian. So you won't get lost in those social media platforms, because it actually teaches you to focus your time and attention in what's called group tasking. And it's really an amazing course. It's totally changing people's lives. And I'll put a message in the chat box, but it's vickyfitch.com/courses. I do have another book coming out called The Vic the Bully in Your Head, and then I have a sequel to that. It'll come out next year that is called Own It, How to Step Up and Stand Out, so people can learn how to be themselves and stop trying to be someone else. Stop trying to, kind of like what we were talking in the chat about you, Brian, is to not try and mold, put yourself in somebody else's mold, but just, especially in this day and age, people just want authenticity. They want somebody who's real, and they want to see, and we can tell with facial and body expressions when somebody's legit and when they're trying to shove themselves in somebody else's thing. So anyway, I'll put that in the chat box, but I appreciate you guys, and I'm going to try not to ever email you, Brian. I'm just going to try and Snapchat you. Maybe I'll say
I've learned if you need to reach Brian, you just got to Snapchat him, and he'll eventually get around to you. That's if like all the other Snapchats don't take off.
Well, we still have to schedule you to be on Vicky Fitch Live, because you've been on He Said Red Said, Brian, but I want you on Vicky Fitch Live. So I just sent you a Facebook message because I could do it while we're on the air.
Facebook messages actually are good. That's Facebook messages work. Those come up pop-ups. So I'm definitely the chat generation side there. I like the chat side.
Yeah, me too.
Well, guys, I appreciate you being here very much. Thank you, Vicky, and Brian. Thank you again for your time. Thank you for being generous with your time and being so gracious and answering all the questions. We look forward to seeing some really great things from you. Again, everybody, my name is Anthony Conklin. I hope that you enjoyed the content here, because it's not about me. It's not about Vicky or Brian. It's about giving back to you, the community, and giving you true value, and taking it away and making yourself not only be a better person, but a better human being. You can find me at anthonyjconklin.com. I am a transformational and motivational speaker. Again, I spent 25 years in corporate America and 27, coming up about 28 years in the entertainment space. I've had the very fortunate, humble experience to work with Joe Girardi, the New York Yankees, Richard Gere, the actor, and members of the New York Knicks. And I am so honored and to tell you, I'm so proud to tell you, I just got hired to speak to 1,000 people in Las Vegas in March. I'm speaking to the largest DJ forum called Mobile Beat Magazine, and I'll be sharing the stage with one and only Jeffrey Gitomer. So I'm pretty excited about it. So Brian, I'll be talking to you soon if I haven't talked to you soon about it.
That's awesome. Congrats.
I just we'll share that in the after blab. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining, everybody. Have yourself a great night. Remember, look in the mirror and say to yourself that you have greatness within you. It's right here. Just allow it to come out. Live your life to the max. I love you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.
There you go. It wouldn't. No, see, it keeps doing it. It keeps going.